Hello everyone. I have been asked to do a reading about the, the change in energy that everyone seems to be feeling right now. And, part of that is the elections that are coming up in America, and a lot of people are fearing the change that will come with that, and even if they're not following the, what's the developments that are going on in the news and things like that, people still feel that there's a huge energy a shift, that we're at the precipice of something big on this planet, and we are at a fork road, it seems to be a fork road. What is all that about, and what do I predict? This is a very interesting question. In the last video, I talked about how God is emerging everywhere we look. We just have to look and we notice all sorts of interesting coincidences, and how, no matter how powerful certain groups of people might be, it seems to be that none of them individually control what's happening in our lives. Collectively they do, but who's pulling the strings on the collective activities? So that's what I'm talking about when I say there is evidence for God. As much as there's evidence of evil and demons, maybe AI, all of this fear that we have today, there is also plenty of evidence of God. Miracles that happen all the time if you just look and if you pay attention. Not least of all, your life. Your life is a miracle from the day you were born. So you can see the darkness, and you can also ironically see the shining light, the light that's shining by belief in God, by faith in your highest self and your highest good. Events and manifestations, I notice how godly they are. Even when things appear to be bad, sometimes they're not as bad as they seem, and their effect can be very positive and productive. So that's why I say to people, don't worry who wins, even if it's not your party who wins, or if it's the one you fear the most. Maybe the fear factor is the problem. Stop fearing the unknown. Although I don't necessarily have bad news on that. We'll get into that in a sec, and I'm going to draw some cards and see what happens, and then I'll round it off with a nice angel card reading as well. It might be really, really good too. I actually didn't bring my book. I left it in the other room, and I don't want to stop recording, so I might even just intuitively download these beautiful angels as well that I have in these cards. Yeah, excellent. Because I don't like reading books. I prefer intuiting, because I do this for a living now, full time. So that's really, really good. I really enjoy. I feel like I'm becoming a different person the more I do. I've been doing this job now for 18 months, and for the past 10 of those months I've been doing it solely as my only work, and it's just amazing. It's always a reminder how God comes into the picture. No matter what happens, God is there. If you can acknowledge it and appreciate it, that would make things even better for you. Also, pay attention to synchronicities, okay? That's how God, or the divinity, how it communicates with us. Coincidences, right? And you notice they're running rampant today, all the time, in the world of, well, what we're talking today about, which is politics. And I think a lot of people who never touched religion are now all of a sudden saying, oh, well, maybe there is something. And, and also, I also love how a lot of so-called quote unquote spiritual people are now embracing Jesus, and understand how a lot of the basic concepts Christianity has given us actually have a valid place. You know what I mean? And what does it actually mean to be spiritual? I mean, I think it doesn't actually matter who your deity might be. Your chosen deity really doesn't matter. And it's more of an intention. It's more of a direction in your life rather than a destination. I think to be spiritual. To be spiritual means to be open, to be curious about the truth, And I think that's where it clashes with the world of politics. Politics is all about ideology, and ideology is the antithesis of philosophy. We all have a philosophy running, in the background, like a background program in our body computer, but we rarely know what it is unless we're a philosopher. Then you might have some idea what your own philosophies are and how they're changing. And that's the whole point of philosophy. Philosophy is about changing what you believe. Cherry picking. I like a bit of this, I like a bit of that. It's not about systems of beliefs. The more you systematize it, that's the ideology. Now you're starting to get into the terrain of what's my ideal worldview? How do I idealize this world? And what hill do I want to die on? What do I want to be remembered when I die? I think that's pointless. It's much better to be open-minded to the truth, because the truth is out there. We just have to tap into it. And the truth, of course, is always evolving and changing, and we have to sort of go with it. But there are certain fundamentals that don't go away, that always stay. And I think one of those is an all-loving God. That's just based on my own personal experiences, of course. It's not an ideology of mine, and I'm always open to changing that. So be wary of ideologues, and almost all politicians are ideologues. That's how they get their fame and fortune, pretty much, because that's the business of ideology. That's why we see certain policies going from one extreme to another, and it never serves anyone when they go to extremes. Extremists don't serve us at all. All they do is just serve us in showing us how ridiculous those ideas are when taken to extremes. So today we're going to look at the American elections specifically. Let's have a look how that might pan out, how that might actually, if that will even mean anything to you on a personal level. It might not. Let's have a look. I'm open-minded to see what I might pick up. I always tap into Kuan Yin, so let's tap into Kuan Yin, and I encourage all of you to tap in to your angels. If you're watching this far, then we're obviously aligned. If your angels tell you to switch off, please do so. You don't have to listen to what I have to say. I'm just going to download what I download, and I really don't mind if you don't resonate with it. That's perfectly fine. And I think that I'm just saying that to illustrate that I'm like you. I am searching for the truth. I don't already have it. I'm not an ideologue, and ideologies can be very, very dangerous. All right. The whole concept of ideology actually does not serve humanity for the reasons I've said, because we're here to find the truth. I think Greg Braden's made an amazing quote. Our body is an antenna to tap in to our source code, to higher energy, to our higher world that we are capable of creating here. I'm paraphrasing, sorry, but that's an interesting quote. Our body is an antenna. That's all it is. You are like the internet. You are a walking internet. Your brain is also just tapping in to knowledge, like I'm doing right now. I didn't come with a prepared speech. I've just got some notes I wrote like very, very sketchy notes I wrote halfway through the night when I couldn't sleep. That's it. I'm really just downloading all of this, and I don't have much experience, so thank you so much for sticking with me. I am not one of those with thousands of viewers and subscribers on this channel. Our way of life, moving forward, and the rest of this century, we forget that this century is still very young. See, now you can tell the difference when I'm reading my notes and when I'm downloading something. So we're going to look at our way of life, and what does it mean to move forward at all? What does it mean? Progress. What is progress? And we forget that this century is very young. I think I'm trying to encourage you guys not to get down in the dumps that, the world is ending. As for my entire life, people have been saying the world's going to end anytime. And it's like, it's not true. It's not true at all. We are just at the beginning of something. I believe that the last 60 70 years, the world has been going through adolescence, and now we're coming out the other end of that. Now we've finally got a chance to mature into adulthood, and that's why we are now at a point where we can choose who do we want to be, what do we want to see this entire millennium. What sort of millennium do we want? This is what we're doing right now as we're coming out the other end of adolescence, which started in about the 1950s, 1960s, when we had all these, an influx of souls that we call the baby boom generation. Intolerance. We're suffering a lot with a lot of intolerance, unashamed bias, misinformation, manipulation, or misinformation masquerading as the truth, and a lack of understanding of the bigger picture. So that's what my aim is, to help you see the bigger picture from a political and spiritual lens. Oh yes, I wrote this the other night. This is my prediction, okay? Or maybe I should read it later. What do you think? How will the relationships here on Earth change? Oh, well, this is after we get alien contact. I definitely believe that we are going to have alien contact very soon. The years of 26, 27, or 28. Probably 26. It just depends how fast we evolve from here on. Everyone I know wants to evolve as fast as they can. But you've got to understand the significance of that. Once we have established officially that we're not the only race here in the universe, that changes the relationship between you and the government, and between you and everyone else as well. Number one, governments will no longer be considered the arbiters of all knowledge. I heard John Kerry say the other day that he wants the internet now to go back to the way things were before we had the internet, when we had very ubiquitous agreement about what a fact is, and then enforce that fact using the tools they now have on the internet. Can you imagine a world like that? But he doesn't see that you can't put that genie back in the bottle. We are well past that now in our evolution. Number two, we will see each other as one another's brother's keeper, irrespective of religious or other belief systems. Ronald Reagan once said, wouldn't it be great if alien race came down and attacked us, because then we would finally unite. It's that same principle there. And number three, everyone will dream bigger, realizing they have been playing a petty little game. And that little game is precious little me. What about me? Me. I only care about me. Does that sound familiar? Because that's the song, isn't it? That they always replay during any election. They give you promises that are designed for you just to be selfish and just to care about me. Little me, I call it. Rather than the bigger picture me, the global me, right? The global scale, the macro me. And therefore, we will attain higher spiritual goals, interacting much more with the higher planes of existence. Also, I wrote this recently about the dimensions. See, we're moving to a higher dimension. Thing is, we think we're in the third dimension, but what I've realized is actually we're not even in the third dimension most of the time. We are in the second dimension. And of course, the internet, I'm going to try and use the internet to help illustrate my point as an analogy, but I think it was always like that. Like, have you heard of bureaucracy? Have you heard of rules and regulations? Have you heard of laws? What are they? They're just pieces of paper at the end of the day. What dimension is a piece of paper? I mean, piece of paper, in terms of it's physical, it's three-dimensional, but its content is two-dimensional, isn't it? Piece of paper is two-dimensional in terms of the content that's in there. You have to read into what it says, because I mean, even judges can't agree what a piece of paper means anymore, right? Well, never did. They never did. That's why there are so many judges getting paid so highly. All right, so it's a second dimension, and what does that actually mean? Well, the world has an underlying two-dimensional mechanical mechanism, operating. It's called bureaucracy. It gives the few, we could call them the rulers or whatever, or the oligarchy. It gifts them an illusion of control. That's why we have these pieces of paper. Also, we have money, which are pieces of paper, aren't they? And it gives them the illusion that they control. They control the entire earth. They control every single person, man, woman, and child on it. And the internet is a way for all of us to come face to face with it and have it institutionalized in our everyday life. So, two-dimensional world we live in. We always have, and the internet makes it more expedient. It's 100% mechanical, okay? But the third dimensional world, when you're truly present, that's the third dimensional world. Well, that's not mechanical at all. That's 0% mechanical and 100% spiritual. It is a holographic analog of higher dimensional beings who flow with infinite consciousness. Due to our two-dimensional low-level consciousness, most of the time, sometimes we go all the way up to fifth dimension and higher, right? But most of the time, we're not even in the third dimension. That's why mindfulness exercises are so important and so powerful. Meditation, yoga, qigong, I did some today, this morning. It just puts you right into your body and makes you more mindful. It helps you live life on purpose and with more consciousness in it. When you do that, you are at least in the third dimension and you are now opening yourself up to the higher planes. Now, due to our low two-dimensional level of consciousness, we feel the structure is a necessary tool to carry out everyday housekeeping tasks that constitute the business of operating this world. Some people will merge with that sphere and become two-dimensional entities. People who will take, for example, the digital IDs and things like that, they're now going to be two-dimensional entities. That's not to say you can't still have spiritual experiences, but now your energy is going to be far more under scrutiny because it'll be able to be monitored. Everything you do, including your body, your body's, the statistics of your body, your organs, your breathing, all of that data will now be public information. So you are now going to be far more of a two-dimensional being. You are going to be a devolved version of yourself. Never ever take digital ID. It's probably the worst decision you can ever make, and you cannot undo that. Some people will merge with that sphere and become 2D. Some still will become free of it and become 4 and 5 dimensional beings. Not that there's anything wrong with the third dimension, but the third dimension will now be seen as the stage that it is. It's just a theatre. That's all the third dimension ever was, But and the reason why it's been such an interesting world, an interesting game, is because there are 4 and 5 dimensional beings who are guiding it. That's why, So those 4D and 5D beings are capable of authoring their own realms, okay? And it all comes down to the focus you make. A dream can become 100% of your focus and become real. We call them lucid dreams. Same with this world. The choice is yours. The world of mundane, I'll read my writing. The world of the mundane, the everyday world that's where Monday gets its name from. It's the same Latin root. focus on the mechanical operations, or choose the constant ebb and flow of manifestation. And that begins and ends with source. Our source code is definitely love, not fear, not hate, not prejudice, not anything that comes from fear. Fear is the root of it all. And the way I tell people is a very simple analogy is your head. We have two things. We have two major components, our head and our heart. The head is analogous to the devil, and the heart is analogous to God. When you're truly present to your heart, you can then be present to God's signals, God's energy, God's communications. When you're in your head, that's a trick. Matrix. Yes, our head tricks us. That's not all it does. The head has some very, very useful functions to live in this real world, the third dimensional world. However, when we're too much in our head, we become two-dimensional. And that's why everything has to be then spelled out on paper, has to be, systematized and institutionalized and all of this stuff. And it loses the spirit that spawned it in the first place. Wow, I love this one. This one just spoke to me. It's the Wheel of Fortune. So let's expect, we're coming to a time we're going to expect unexpected good fortune coming into our world. So the intention I have for today is what's going to happen in a few days with the election coming up. I've had a few theories and they're quite contradictory to each other. So I'm really going to put that aside. I'm actually not interested in what my head says. I really want to come from the heart and see what I pick up through the love and grace and mercy of Kuan Yin, who I always use in my readings when I deal with my clients. So Wheel of Fortune was the first card I came up with. I picked out. It really spoke to me. While I shuffle, I'm going to see if I can say anything else. Higher force, higher intellect. There we have a sphinx with a sword. Higher intellect. The Egyptians were onto something. They were definitely in communication with higher source. Whether that's aliens, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. Or was it their spiritual practice that helped them do that? But they were onto something, and that energy has never left us. And a lot of what we call modernity is a negative reaction to those times. So our institutions are pretty much satanic. If you look at the symbols carefully, you can see that. And Satanism, of course, is a reaction to the enlightened eras. For example, the empire, what was it called? Tartarian Empire. The Tartarian Empire, which our history hasn't even recorded properly. But that was a supposed time when the Asian part of Russia was, in control of the world, and very spiritual knowledge was introduced to this world through that period. And then it was all ceased to exist with flooding and, I dropped a card, that'd be interesting to see. The thing is, it doesn't matter about all of that. It's happened again and again and again. They've managed to use all different methods to wipe out our history. And they can do that now at a click of a button with the internet. And you can see that's happening through what we call censorship. But can you imagine how censored our history is if you think the Daily News is censored? Oh my goodness. All right. This came out. All right, it's not the best of cards. But yeah, it's the Three of Daggers. Three of Daggers through the heart. I'm not sure if you can see that. I will bring the camera to the cards soon and I'll show you once they're all laid out. Okay, it's an interesting juxtaposition to the Wheel of Fortune. So we've got we've got a lot of emotional turmoil right now. And I feel it's because people feel misled. Promises aren't delivered on. you know, and I think that's true when you talk about politics. And it's true of every institution, you know, even marriage. Look, I mean, people feel like they've got the short end of the stick. Um, they're not fulfilled on their promise. But the thing is that, you know, you chose to make a sacrifice of sacrificing your soul. Whenever you make an agreement, you are choosing to sacrifice your soul. Okay, so if you say I want to be governed, that's what you do. Every time you elect someone, you're sending out a message to the parties, but also to God, that I want to be governed. I don't trust myself to govern myself. Well, we're not there yet, and I don't expect us to be there anytime soon. That's okay, but what do you expect? You know what I mean? Of course, you realize that it's all a sham. Of course. But even marriage, look at marriage. We thought that there is this mythical thing to be happy ever after. I mean, come on. Grow up, people. Like, you know, everything you love about your partner is in you. It's already in you. And all you need is the trigger to bring that out. And right now we are being triggered in a very painful way, because there are certain energies we have been ignoring, we have been allowed to be dormant, like responsibility, like understanding the opposite sex that is in your own energy. Anima and animus, what Carl Jung called it. You know, we've all got it. We've all got our own female and male energies. And so you never need a partner. You never need marriage. But if you can get it, that's great, you know. That's a miracle, actually. But you don't actually need it. You certainly don't need it in order to find meaning in life, you know, and to be happy and to be content. But if you marry the wrong person, you know, then you are making a soul sacrifice, you know. And that comes also with politicians. I don't think there is such a thing as voting the right way or the wrong way. Voting in itself sends a very strong message, and that's why I think voting should not be compulsory. In my country, in Australia, we have compulsory voting, unfortunately, and I think that sends a very wrong message to the parties who are being elected, and it's also, when you think about it, very undemocratic. We're actually tolerating non-democratic processes in the name of democracy. Next, Knight of Wands. I'm just going to keep shuffling, actually. What do you reckon? Shall I keep shuffling, or shall we just leave it at 3 cards? We'll leave it at 3 cards. Yeah. So this is like our past. Dumb luck, let's say. We had this world that we were born into, we were thrown into, and we took a lot of things for granted. Now we're starting to feel the emotional pain of that, of taking it for granted, and also of not actually really understanding how the world works. And we're only got ourselves to blame for that, of course. I mean, you know, we have shunned away from it like nobody's business, you know. It's like, who shot John F. Kennedy? Oh, don't mention the war again. You know, it's a bit like that. It's been like that for forever. Certainly, it's true in social circles, right? Not today, but 20 years ago even. What about academia? You know, I've come from many years of studying in university, and, you know, you would absolutely be embarrassed to ask certain questions that strike at the heart of the issue, the heart of the institutions that you're trying to question. No, don't go there. That's not... Anyway, it's not politically correct, but they use more sophisticated labels than that to really get you to shut up and not even go there. You feel guilty for even having certain thoughts, you know, certain questions within yourself. And the Knight of Wands. I like the Knight of Wands. This is the future. What can I say about the Knight of Wands? I want you to see it for yourself. You might pick up something that I don't pick up about it. I'll tell you, youth. To me, that represents youth. Not youth as in a 12, 13-year-old, but an older person who's just about to become an adult. And, Knight of Wands says to me that we're very eager. We're very eager to go to heaven. So many people using that word since 2020. Heaven. Oh, we need to create heaven on earth. We need to go to heaven. Even non-Christians use that word. And some people say, well, okay, well, if I study this particular book, if I do this practice every day, maybe I will bring heaven here a little bit sooner. All that does is, of course, it shortcuts what you're here to experience. And you can't do that, unfortunately, because that's going back to 2D reality. All right? If you want to use your spiritual practice to try and avoid certain experiences, now you're actually going down a dimension. You're going from 3D to 2D. You now living in a theoretical world. Don't go there. Don't go there. You have to learn to experience everything that comes your way, but trust and have faith you can deal with it. You can deal with it as you mature more and more. Every time you do it, you're going to do it with a more intelligence, with more love and enthusiasm, and less recklessness. Less, oh, I hate this, so I'm going to now study this so I don't have to experience that which I hate. That's a dog chasing its own tail. That is really counterproductive. Now, I want you to have a look at these cards together. This is where I feel we're sort of at the moment. I don't know if you can see. I hope you can. All right. That's where we are at the moment. And now I'm going to do 10 cards. This is a Celtic cross, very detailed past, present, future reading in terms of the election that's coming up and all those questions that I mentioned before. So things like our way of life, moving forward, what the rest of the century has in store for us. Remember, it's a very young century. We're still only a quarter of it. So, yeah. And I mean, the 20th century didn't even really start until the 1960s, right? If you look at it from that point of view, we've got a long way to go before we even start this century. And also things like intolerance, bias. I think everyone complains about that on both sides of the fence. All right, here we go. I think that's enough shuffling. Here we go. Oh my God, Knight of Wands. So this is where we are. Just the one we finished the other reading on. Oh my God. What are the chances? About 1%. There you go. All right, so I love to sort of look at the future card to begin. Oh my God, that's a really good... This card represents peace. But not like the final peace, kumbaya, everyone's going around in a circle, singing and dancing the whole world over. No, this is like the final war has been ended amicably, and we don't want any more war. We know we're not going to have any more war. I just pulled out another one about it. The Knight of Wands. Sorry, Knight of Cups. So the Knight of Cups is saying that, we're going to be amicable and peaceful with the understanding that there are not going to be any more wars. We're going to have enough structure in place. 2D structure. 2D does have its place. But we'll have enough 2D force, if you like, to know that we're never, ever going to do this again. We are now officially over the war age. That's where we're going. That's where we're going. Okay? And I can tell you, I know numerologically, 2026 is a new beginning because it's a number one year. The next one will be 2035. So we're not talking a very long time. I don't see wars going on for much longer. We are going to finally see that wars are a thing of the past. We're going to put an end to all wars. That's where we're going. Great news. Great news. Oh, and in the near future, the magician tells me that we're going to bring in a period of magical manifestation. Things are going to happen very soon, like within the next month or two, like this election cycle we're talking about, right? This election, so between November and January, magical, unexpected manifestations are going to happen on the scale of the world. Things that we didn't think were possible are now going to become a reality. Certain political mechanisms are going to work that we didn't even know existed, or didn't know that we had the ability to exercise them. So that's going to be really good. Who's going to win? I know. You're asking me who's going to win, and I'm going to tell you in a minute about that. All right. I've got some interesting things to say, I think, about that. Because there are two timelines, and I am not, like, it could be Kamala Harris, it could be Donald Trump. I am actually not attached to either one of them. I really am not. I think it's best to spiritually be prepared for both. And that's what I invite you to do. Our challenge at the moment is to say the obvious. Our challenge at the moment is to sort of like just do not what we know is right. That's our challenge. But we've come a long way. We've seen a lot of bureaucrats now come out and actually become partisan out of principle, not out of, traditionally being Democrat or Republican. Military people even doing some wonderful work. I never had much respect for the military until since Trump came in 2020. In 2016. Actually, in 2020, that's when I started to get respect for the military. Once I started to really understand a lot of Trump's work, even though he'd already been in power for 3 years. And what I'm saying also is that some of the things that are going on in the military right now are things to prevent World War III. They're getting involved in politics when they never ever did in the past, because they actually, for one motivation only, not money, not greed, not self-preservation, but to avoid World War III. And that, to me, is truly amazing. My dad was in the Cuban War in the 60s, the Bay of Pigs, and I only learned, decades later that when I was a young kid, I learned that war nearly ended the world. That could have ended the world, but I do also know that John F. Kennedy really responded very, 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 very emphatically and specifically, instinctively and very purposefully. He was driven to avoid that eventuality. Good on him. That's what he did. And I feel that his spirit is still with us, because people are now using him as a role model of how to conduct yourself in public life to get better outcomes. This one, groundedness. This is what all of us are focusing on right now. We're focused on our physical survival, but also our spiritual groundedness is very important. Something that never, politics and spirituality never really went together. Not properly, not really anyway. Yeah, there was certain politicians who would pander to certain groups and say the right things, and then after the election, everyone would forget about it. I think what's going on now, though, we're seeing the institutionalization of spirituality, while other people are trying to ban. They're really trying to ban anything, any kind of religious or spiritual memes on social media. That's just a reaction. Don't be afraid of that. That's just a reaction to the fact that for the first time, like ever, we're having spirituality being institutionalized. I'll give you the biggest example I can probably give you, and that is, what is government for? People are now starting to ask, what is the basis of our government? What's the basis of our constitution? You know, is it bureaucratic, two-dimensional garbage? Or is it something more deep and meaningful than that? If so, what is it? Well, you know, what does it mean to even be good versus being bad? Is it meaning that you've contravened some rule that's written in some little paragraph in a little subsection of a bylaw? Or is being good coming from a higher entity? Donald Trump recently said, we don't answer to bureaucrats in Washington. We only answer to God in heaven. And I think it's amazing that he said that, but it's actually not that amazing because so many people feel exactly like that. He is just mouthing what many people are feeling right now. Next, in the past, we idolized, cherished our politicians. So dangerous. You don't know your politician. You don't know him as a person or her. You don't know them. In fact, the very person that they are on your TV and on your computer screen could be diabolically opposite to who they actually are in real life. So be careful who you worship. I have noticed since the Ronald Reagan era, only because I don't really remember before that, I'm too young, but since Ronald Reagan era, politics has become a branch of pop culture. It's become so popular as a source of entertainment for people that it's just incredible. This card is our strong suit. 3 of Cups. Friendships, as you can see. Friendships and networks. This card is telling me that we've for far too long been herd. Part of so much easier to just go with the flow. Be part of the herd. Be accepted by your network rather than go against the grain. Now, since COVID hit, I've noticed people are now enjoying breaking free from their networks, finding new networks, finding new people who share the same visions, the same purposes in life. So that's the past and present, now the future, and I'm so happy to come back to the Magician. Yes, the Warrior. Everyone's now got a warrior version of them coming out. For some people that's dark, that looks dark, but that's because they were never meant to be 4th, 5th dimensional, maybe not even 3rd dimensional, right? But for others of us, we are warriors. We are warriors in the making, and everything that's going on in the world stage, if you like, in the world global politics, is actually to bring that out in us, to bring out your warrior, your fierce warrior, not your pathetic, weak, worrywart warrior. We don't want to go there. Never, ever, ever. Then we've got the 5 of Cups. People are lamenting certain things they realize they have to disattach. We have to disattach. We have to disattach from relationships from the past that haven't worked, from even the monetary system. Yeah, it's a real thing. We have to detach from, we've already done a good job at detaching from mainstream media. Well done. Well done. Hence we've got the Joe Rogans, the Tucker Carlsons and all that. Some of them are corrupt. It doesn't matter. But in totality, as a force, they're a force now for good, relatively good. But don't ever, just lose yourself in one source of information. Never ever do that. And that's symbolic of everything in life. Don't get attached to just one relationship. Yes, have one partner in life, but don't just lean on them for your love and friendship that you require, that you want. Still be responsible for yourself and for your own happiness and for your own direction and life purpose and things like that. Next, This is what you need to know right now. Ace of Cups. This card tells me that we are going through an emotional cleansing right now. And the main thing that I want you to know is that it's temporary, okay? It's very temporary. This emotional tornado that you're feeling right now, stampede of emotions, is just for the time being, and it's serving a higher purpose, which I hope this whole reading helps illustrate to you what that purpose is. I'm also seeing that we are now opening ourselves up to be more generous of spirit towards one another. Smile at the person who walks by you, at the random person that walks past you in the street. There is no reason why you can't give on that level. It costs nothing to send everyone positive goodwill and regard. Then our fear is that we're going to empower ourselves with too much power, that we don't know what to do with it, that we bite off more than we can chew, so to speak, and have all this power and become a bunch of, and we already see plenty of examples of this, but a bunch of, narcissists. That's a fear of going down that way. But so long as you're grounded in your spiritual understanding and your spiritual knowledge, whatever it is that you've attained up to now, just the fact that you have a consciousness for your spiritual, an awareness of your spiritual presence, your spiritual dimension, that in itself will stave off any kind of narcissistic kind of turmoil that can result from times like this. And that leads us back to that future that I mentioned earlier. We're going to a world where we're going to be free of war. Emphatically, this is one of the first things that are going to happen coming up into this new age, starting between 2026 and 2035. Well, actually, we are entering a new world in 2026, but it's going to be a 9-year period of new ideas, healing the rifts of the past, the destabilization, bringing out fixing up the destabilization that's occurring right now and for the rest of 2025 as well. But then there'll be another new epoch starting 2035, and that's when we're going to start to actually implement a lot of good new practices and totally new institutions and new politics as well. Politics will totally have a new, not just a new face, but I think a new consciousness behind it, a new intention. Yeah. Now, the good news I want you to know is it doesn't actually matter who wins for this future to happen. Okay? And I'm going to give you 2 timelines now, one for Kamala and one for Donald Trump. Because when you think about it, there are pros and cons for both of them. Like, I know what a lot of people say. It's hard to redeem Kamala. She seems to be so bad. In the words of Donald Trump, so grossly incompetent. I think that is very, very true. But let's even pretend for a moment she's the devil incarnate. Even if that is the case, there it is. The devil card. Isn't that an interesting coincidence? Well, that's just going to speed up our learning at the end of the day, isn't it? And that would mean less suffering in the long term. But that's not necessarily what I predict. I want to see what our angels might bring out in this reading. All right, let me see. I'm going to ask Kuan Yin to tell me to stop shuffling whenever she's ready. Anytime, Kuan Yin. No, she's still thinking about it. Okay, I heard it that time. Thank you. Shall I cut the cards? No. Yes, cut the cards. Here we go. Number one, Trump. All right, we've already determined that before. I've already determined that before. So this is the cards for Trump. All right, so I'm going to actually bring out 5 cards for each candidate. All right. If Trump comes in, our future is justice. There's going to be a lot of justice done. So, and we got this card as well. This card is not quite justice, but it's similar. It's about generosity. People are going to be very relieved. This is the first one, Ace of Swords. People are going to feel very relieved and feel like they've won their life back. You know, it's going to be like they've come out of prison once they feel that once they find out the news that Trump has won. It's going to be, people are going to feel very generous of spirit and just, you know, become charitable towards one another. Especially people who have found new, you know, like connections through other people who think like they do politically. Then our intuition is going to kick in globally. We're going to become very much see things as they are and not to count our fortunes too prematurely. And we're going to establish new connections, new partnerships with people, not just romantic, but new partnerships to get things done on a more grassroots level. So either way, we're going to work very hard. It's going to be very hard work because we're going to be doing a lot of grassroots stuff, but we won't have any fear. Whereas in the past, if you got together to form your own political movements, they would just be shot down very easily and quickly by the media for one main reason, that there were too few people doing that. But now Trump is a movement that it's unstoppable. Even if, God forbid, somebody shot him right now, his movement is not going to go anywhere, and it will probably just become even bigger if he dies. And we're going to move to the justice card. Yes, there's going to be a lot of people sent to jail. There's going to be a lot of people, and that in itself is going to be a test for everyone watching that, because if you're going to get off on that, then good luck to you, right? Then you're connecting to much lower entities, far lower entities, more demonic entities who get off on pain and suffering. So be careful what you choose. But yes, there will be a lot of justice, and we're going to come into the new era, as I said to you, with, you know, no more war. No more war seems to be the future that we're inevitably leading to institutionalize no more war. Number 2, we've got Kamala's possibility. All right, Kamala, there she is. Very grateful. She's going to be very relieved and grateful. That's the Queen of Pentacles. She's going to make a promise once she gets elected. A promise that's going to surprise a lot of people. And is there anything else I can pick up about that promise? She's also going to be quite generous with the money that she's going to have power over. So it's going to be interesting. Not really generous, not truly and authentically generous, but she will make like a one-off payment to help people with, you know, the cost of living, just to show that the past, you know, 64 days haven't just been a show, but there is some substance to her words. Then we've got the King of Wands, which says to me, she's going to very soon, not on this next day, but maybe 6 months later, she's going to really become very arrogant, and she's going to provoke a lot of people, and she's going to really try and show off the size of her stick. You know, they say that in politics there are sticks and there are carrots. Well, she's going to have a really big stick to start to threaten and scare people, but people are going to see it for what it is. We've already lived through COVID. We've already lived through, you know, the Russian hoax to try and kill character assassinate Trump. It didn't work, and then bullets tried to kill Trump. And we've lived through a lot of stuff to help us realize that not all is as it seems. So that stick is going to become a joke in the end of the day. I also predict, this is interesting, that it's possible that, and this is what this card is alluding to. This card is alluding to, like, you see the woman wearing a blind with swords at the back. It's going to be, she's going to fear for her political future. Even if she loses, she's going to fear for her political, because she didn't get there legitimately. She certainly didn't get there conventionally, but I don't think she got there even by the Constitution, because she got no primary votes from her own party. She didn't win any primary, unlike any other candidate since about 1930 something, right? So it means that Biden can come in and challenge her, and if that succeeds, then it could even be a re-election, and that can jeopardize Trump. So long as it's done within the 2-month period before the inauguration, there can be a lot of stuff. But if she wins, she's also not safe from those machinations. If she wins, Biden won't come back. I think that's for sure. However, there are other people who would kill for her job. And there are powers that be that are very unhappy with her performance. So, and her inability to effectively lead and rule. That's what they're all there to do at the end of the day, aren't they? Unfortunately for us, to be honest. Then I see that there's going to be a despondence, okay, a depression. People are going to feel very depressed, and that's going to spark people to action. Very quick, creative action that people are going to, like, I would say within the first year of her presidency, probably much sooner, probably even 6 months, you're going to see people, and that's the same. See, it's the same as Donald Trump's timeline. You see? We're all going to spring to action. Putting your money where your mouth is. Well, there's going to be more money around if Trump wins. So people can actually use money to enact change as well. But in her timeline, less money, but people are still going to make do with what they can. Kind of naively, but that's how we need to be. We have to be naive. We have to be childlike again to really enact change. That's how it works. Stop fearing, and we've got safety in numbers. We have safety in numbers to create the government we want, to create the world we want. This was never, ever meant to be a world led by government. It's always the people. It's always, no matter what they even say, even if they, God forbid, trash the whole idea of democracy and throw away the Constitution, it always was, is, and will be ruled by the majority of people. That's how consciousness works. And it's consciousness at the end of the day that's running everything. And that comes back to where I started. It's God. God runs everything. Don't get caught up about who wins and who loses. That's part of the trick. That's there to trap you, okay? Whoever wins, it's a blessing from God. It's a blessing from God. My money is probably with Trump I'll tell you why. I would say it's Trump because, I shuffle the angel cards, because they're going to be too embarrassed, the Democratic Party, if they're going to really challenge him, too embarrassed what will come out of that, and the fact that they're showing their true colours, their real face of the system. But also because, remember I said before, there are people in the military now who are working alongside Russian and Ukrainian military who are, they know that Trump's ahead. We all know that Trump's ahead by miles, ahead of Kamala. But obviously, we're not immune to the elections being rigged, right? I think Joe Rogan said himself that there's a very good chance that we've had a lot of rigging over the last 100 years. But it's very hard to check. So they are aware that it can be rigged, but they're going to try and do everything possible that it will not be rigged and that it will be won by Trump because they need him. Russia and Ukraine need Trump more than anyone around the world. And there are people in the military in the US who are working day and night to make that happen, to ensure that he gets in, just to avoid World War III. If Kamala wins, well then, even by rigging, I mean, then they're going to have a fight with the military, and they're not stupid enough to do that. They're not stupid enough, because the military, you can't fight with the military. That's just stupid, especially when they're right, and especially when the will of the people are alongside the military. So I would say, unless they can pull out a last minute rabbit out of the hat to make it look legitimate that she can win, and then they rig it to actually get her to come into the Oval Office, they're going to have to let it go. They can't. They're out of cards. Pardon the pun. They're out of cards. They're out of machinations. All right. Now let's draw an angel card. And as I said, I didn't bring my book, so I'm going to have to intuit what this angel says. This angel represents leadership for the future. All right. Here we go. Here we go. This one jumped at me. Lovia in the red dress. Oh, I've got two. Hariel. I want to show you because they're beautiful, beautiful angels. Oh, look at that. All right, so I'm going to try and be quick because I realize the whole hour's gone. Well, Hariel and Lovia both have wings, but they are not pedestalized. I think that's the future of all leadership, of all government in the future. Cooperation. I think there's going to be a better system because swords represent intellect. There's going to be better systems in the future of governments being able to get on the same page with the people in a more official way, not in a more, like today it's done through focus groups. That's all done behind closed doors. We don't know what's going on there and what the agenda is of their research, right? Whatever the agenda is what they're going to find, right? Well, obviously it's going to be filtered through whatever the agenda is. So I think that's going to be part of the future of leadership. Whoever wins, it doesn't even matter who wins now. I'm talking more maybe like the next, like 4 years from now. Also, Hariel says to me that spirit. I mean, she looks to me like Jesus. Spirit is going to be very much at the front and center of politics. That genie cannot be put back in the bottle. And why? Why should they be separated anyway? I mean, at the end of the day, like I started talking at the start, I was talking about philosophy, how we all here really to try and find what the truth is. What the hell is the truth? I mean, we don't need ideologies and people fighting for belief systems to make things more complicated for us. It's hard enough for us to find what the truth is and what we're here to do as a planet. And that's where I'd like to end. That's what I feel is where politics is going to move towards, okay? More towards our purpose as a race, our intentions, not just how much tax break can they give us in the next election cycle. Okay, thank you so much for watching and listening. God bless.